Hi, I'm Sandy with Lightning Tools, and I'm here again with Brett. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Sandy. Yeah, not bad at all.
Have you recovered yet from collab days?
I have just about. Yeah, that was a pretty tiring week.
I bet.
But yeah, we had well, Alex Druskovic, who was a Microsoft employee. He lives in Germany in
Mm-hmm.
the Frankfurt region, and yeah, he was staying at our home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he arrived on the Monday evening, and on the Tuesday we headed down to Milton Keynes or Bletchley Park, where the club days took place.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, after club days, it finished and we rushed over to Wolverhampton, which is about 1 hour, 30-minute drive.
It's near
Uh,
Birmingham, right?
yeah,
Sort
yeah,
of.
just kind of
Mm-hmm.
west of Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
So we headed over there because England were playing Germany
Oh,
in the Arnold Cup. So this was
oh
a
well.
ladies
Mm-hmm.
football match. So
Mm-hmm.
England won, just in case you're wondering. So everybody was cheering except for Alex.
Right.
He didn't pretend to be English or anything like that. He just sat there like,
As Germans do. Oops.
well, he's not German, but he was supporting.
Right. I didn't think so.
Yeah, which my kids actually kept on rubbing in as well as
Uh,
on the journey back. They just kept like asking him, even though they knew the answers. Like, who are you supporting? But yeah, there we go. And yeah, so
had the kids been to a big football match like that before?
no, not like that. No.
I bet that was exciting.
Yeah, they loved it. Yeah, it's really,
Mm-hmm.
really good. And so, yeah, he needed dropping off at London Heathrow for a 6 a.m. flight back
Oh,
to
jeez.
Munich because he had a meeting at 10 a.m. in Munich
Oh,
at
wow.
Microsoft. So yeah, it's a pretty early start. So I was effectively on 3 hours sleep that night and 4 hours sleep the night before, and of course all the buzz of being at the event and all that sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Friday I was exhausted. Let's put it that way.
Well, so for people who don't yet know, you ran an event that's called Collab Days. Would you say that's sort of a successor to SharePoint Saturday?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Yep.
Mm,
Absolutely. So SharePoint Saturday was something that yeah, started sort of in the late noughties. So I guess
mm-hmm,
sort of
mm-hmm,
like around 2008 or 2009 time.
mm-hmm,
And yeah, it was fantastic because you had lots of people putting on events all around the world. And in fact, on some Saturdays there was like 4 or 5 running
right, right.
somewhere. In the States, they tended to be by city,
Mm-hmm,
and I think other places they tended to do it by country. So there was,
mm,
some of the events like in Belgium or in the UK
mm-hmm,
and so on. There'd be one or
right,
two, maybe a year or something. But
right, right.
yeah, the States, it was many large cities would bring in their community of SharePoint people to attend different events, and the speakers would actually travel worldwide all the
Yep,
time to yeah, speak at some of these SharePoint Saturdays.
yep.
But
You and
yeah,
I have both organized and spoken at them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, ever since 2010, I organised along with Tony Pounder, originally Mark McRae.
Mm,
We organised SharePoint Saturday UK. So that took place in 2010 in Birmingham. We ran it in Nottingham for a few years. We also ran it in Hinckley in Leicestershire for a couple of years as well. And yeah, it started to sort of dry up a little bit. And I think, part of the confusion there may have been in the name of it
mhm,
because it was very much SharePoint Saturday,
mm,
and a lot of the attendees would be relatively new to SharePoint. But of course, how things have evolved, there's now people using Teams, and we get people all the
right.
time that are using Teams that don't realize they're using SharePoint
Yep.
actually, and likewise with the Power Platform and so on. So even though you had Power Platform sessions and maybe Azure sessions and things like that, people would recognize it as a SharePoint event.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing actually that under the name of Collab Days, you get very few people actually submitting SharePoint topics.
Mm-hmm. Mm,
So yeah, they might be now around Viva, they might be around Teams, they might be around
mm,
again Power Platform and
mm-hmm.
um, developer type sessions around Azure and things like
Mm.
that.
Some
So that's
SharePoint or
there was very very little. I'm not so sure whether there was even one,
huh, huh.
but, but yeah, that's a little bit surprising, but also there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about that again is using SharePoint behind the scenes, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
Viva for
Mhm.
example. You know,
Mhm.
it is really Viva Connect is SharePoint,
Mhm.
and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of good topics around that. So
Mhm.
this is on the back really of the Collab Summit. So there's the Collab
Mhm.
Summit in Europe, which is
Mhm.
nowadays held in Germany, and there's
Mhm.
also the Collab Days in the US, which is organized by Mark Rackley,
Mhm.
and that is uh, sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the city now, but
Branson, Missouri.
yeah. So in Branson, Missouri, yeah, absolutely. So there's those two events, which are like a 2 or 3 day type event, attracting 1 or 2 thousand attendees. But this Collab Days is a sister of that, but it's more around a sort of day's worth of material like SharePoint Saturday was. But
Mhm.
rather than hold it on a weekend, it's held on a working day.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's been quite a few collab days. Pre-pandemic, there was some that are again being held in Belgium and Portugal and places like that. We were organising our first one back in 2020. We were about to sign off on a large conference centre in the middle of Birmingham, and yeah, the pandemic hit. So we did that one
Mhm.
virtually.
Mhm.
It actually took
Mhm.
place in the end in 2021 because, as with everybody, we just kept postponing, thinking that this pandemic is only going to last a few months.
Right.
Uh, we ended up, okay, well, this is here to stay for a while, so we we did it as a virtual event
Mhm.
beginning 2021. But yeah, we actually pushed forward this time around with an in-person event, and the venue um, was superb. So in the past, like I said, the Birmingham one was meant to be in a conference center in the middle of Birmingham. And one of the challenges, if you've ever organized an event like this, is when you get that piece of paper and you're about to sign for it personally, and becoming liable for 20 or 30,000 pounds worth of costs,
Mhm.
knowing that, okay, now the next thing is I've got to try and find some sponsors that are going to cover that cost.
Right.
And the cost is going towards the rooms, it's going towards the lunches and the coffees and the teas
Right.
and all that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So we, as I know we've spoken about on this show before, we've been supporting for the last few years now the National Museum of Computing,
Mhm.
which is based in Bletchley Park, where Alan Turing um, used the bomb machines to crack the Nazi codes coming in from
Mhm.
Germany. So
Mhm.
um, it's an absolutely fascinating venue. And on Bletchley Park, there's the Bletchley Park Museum, and there's also the National Museum of Computing.
Mhm.
And it's the National Museum of Computing that is home to the oldest working collection of computers in the world. They've got all sorts of machines, including Colossus, the bomb. There's numerous Enigma machines.
Mhm.
Uh, there's the Decryton, which is the oldest working computer in the world, and
Yep.
so on. So these are all there in the museum, and that's kind of all the 40s stuff. But then it goes up into the decades, into the 50s and the
Mm.
60s, 60s and
Uh-uh.
80s,
Mm.
and it's kind of alarming when you walk into the 80s section. You're like, this was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you walk into the 80s classroom and it's like, yeah, I used to learn at primary school using these computers. And, yeah, it's kind of fun to be there.
Mhm.
But yeah, back in it must have been 2 or 3 years ago now. The director of the National Museum of Computing reached out to the MVP group
Mhm.
to Claire Smith specifically, because the MVPs had been there on a couple of occasions
Oh.
beforehand, and she was reaching out because, of course, in the pandemic, the museums had to shut, and Bletchley Park, the grounds where the museum is based, they still demanded the rent to
Oh.
be paid and so on. So the museum was really finding it hard to make ends meet. They couldn't continue their programs, which they were running, and this was around helping autistic young adults find careers.
Mm.
Because unfortunately, if you might have every single skill in the world that's required for a particular job, but you've got that thing against your name that says you're autistic, and a lot of people
Mm.
won't employ people because of that
Mhm.
reason. So
Mm.
um, yeah, the museum actually really helps those people earn more skills and confidence. It
Mhm.
helps to find them by engaging with different employers and actually promoting the benefit of hiring somebody with this superpower of
Uh-huh.
autistic. So that's one of the things that the museum does. What they also do is work with children that might be in a position where they, their schools can't afford to provide the computer equipment, or they can't even afford a minibus sometimes in order to
Mm,
take them to places like the National
mm,
Museum of Computing. And some parents as well, can't afford the equipment for their children that might have a passion for IT, but
mm,
can't learn because they're just not privileged in that way. So one of the other programs is they provide the it was monthly, but now it's bi-weekly
oh,
sessions where there's different volunteers that usually have a lot of programming experience and so on, that act as mentors for these children, to really help them with their passion
mm.
for learning
And
programming.
you've
And
done that, right?
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm,
So I volunteered as a mentor.
mm.
So I've been down there a few times now and worked with these children, and they're absolutely amazing. You see some of the things that 9, 10, 11-year-olds are churning out, and it's just incredible.
Huh.
So they're starting off with things like Scratch, and then they're moving up to Python,
Mm,
and then they're working with all sorts of things like sphere bots, which are absolutely really, really cool, and microbits and so on. So they're actually working with different devices and getting those
mm,
devices to do stuff,
mm,
basically.
mm,
So yeah, it's really, really cool. So yeah, Lightning Tools helped them financially with
mm,
providing this equipment to both the autistic young adults and also to the children. So they actually have equipment to learn
mm,
with, which is been great. So when it came to collab days, I thought, well, we could go and commit to 20, 30,000 pounds on a hotel or something, or let me speak to the museum and see if they'd be
mm.
interested in hosting something. So we did that, and they were over the moon in the fact that they gave us the entire museum for the day, and um, it was just fantastic that some of the sessions were taking place not in a room like a conference room, but in the museum itself. So the
That's so
backdrop to
cool.
presenters was actually like the oldest working machines in the world.
Yeah, yeah. That had to be so neat for a whole bunch of nerds like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of people. Louise Freese was just like, she was like she was in a candy shop as a 5-year-old child. She just absolutely loved it. So yeah, it was a very great event. But what that meant was we had some costs that we had to cover. So we had to cover the costs of catering and coffee and that sort of thing. Uh, but that was fairly minimal, because there was no sort of per head room charge or anything like that.
Mm,
The museum worked on a contribution basis.
mm,
So we were able to contribute near on £7,000 to the museum.
mm.
They did that as a profit,
Oh,
um, and we had the costs on top of that, which was for the catering and
mm,
and
mm.
and so on. So
And what about speakers at an event like this?
yeah, so I think as I was going through announcing each of the different speakers, didn't realize this at first, because the community that I'm in is very much the sort of SharePoint and Teams community, being an Office Apps and Services MVP. But we also, as I mentioned, had a lot of Azure events, and we had Azure sessions and Power Platform sessions as well. So some of the names I was kind of familiar with, but didn't really know that person very well when
Mm,
we were accepting speaker topics.
mhm.
And I think there was only one person that wasn't a Microsoft MVP, and that was
Uh-huh.
Alex Draskovic, and he
Oh,
can't be an MVP because he
right,
works at Microsoft. So
right.
there were some really high-end speakers at the event,
Mm,
which is really
right.
fantastic.
And I mean, you don't have to pay them, right? They are all volunteering their time.
Exactly, and coming with a lot of travel costs as well. We had
Mm,
not just people from the UK speak, but we had some from, again, Belgium, Netherlands,
mm,
Germany,
mm,
Portugal, and also Dallas,
mm,
which is Eric Shup's coming all the way over from there. So yeah, we were extremely grateful of course for them to come over and deliver their sessions.
mm,
And for
mm,
a lot of them, it's the first time that they've delivered a session in 2 years because of the pandemic.
right.
So yeah, it's really
Mhm,
good from that point of view.
mm, mhm,
So we had uh, around 100 attendees sign up. we had about 65 actually show up,
Mm.
which, yeah, we are going to put this event on again. So one thing I will say is, that ate into what could have gone to the museum
Uh-huh.
in terms of costs for food and
Uh-huh.
all that sort of stuff. So it is really important that at these community events that if you aren't going to show, to let the
Mm.
organizers know that you're not going to show,
Right. Yeah,
not
yeah.
on the day either, because the food has already been
Food's been
ordered
ordered.
at
Yeah.
that point.
Mhm.
But yeah, try and give some notice if you have signed up for a community event, you're not going to show up.
Mhm.
Please reach out and
'Cause it
let.
was free to attend also, right?
Free to attend, yeah. So and that was the biggest cost, was the catering side. So,
Mm, mm.
but yeah, all in all, it was a fantastic event though, and we're looking forward
Excellent.
to doing it again on the 5th of October at the same venue. So
Awesome.
yeah, they did a great job, and there was a highlight
Okay.
of the event as well. So one of the speakers was actually Sir Dermot Turing, um,
Mm,
who is Alan Turing's nephew.
mm.
So yeah, he came along and sort of demystified all the rumors and
Oh,
correct stories around his uncle Alan Turing,
oh, oh,
which is really good. And a lot of that is due to, well, not just media, but there's been movies
right.
made, imitation games, and so on, which for the most part are true, but they do allude to certain inaccuracies.
Mm.
So he was putting all of those
Oh,
rumors
okay.
to rest and so on.
Mm,
So it was a great session
mm.
to do that as
Oh,
well.
very cool, very cool. Yeah, but I mean, would you say that most people in the room knew who he or who his uncle was?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I think based on the fact that it was going to be held there, yeah, they
Mm,
probably, if they didn't know before, they probably did the research before attending.
mm,
So,
mm.
but yeah,
Great.
and of course the movie kind of helped create
Uh-huh.
some awareness as well
Mhm,
about
mm.
Alan Turing.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it was.
Good. Well done.
Thank you. It was definitely worth doing.
Mm,
Really enjoyable, and seeing the gratitude from the museum and all the effort that they went to in order to put the event on as well.
mm,
Was absolutely outstanding, really.
mhm.
So yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Great.
it's really
Yeah,
really
so
cool.
yeah, if anybody listening to this is interested, we'll put a link to the museum in our description. And yeah, I'm sure they'll take donations from anywhere.
Yeah, and not only that, if you want to see um, the working machines, like even if you're in the States
Mhm.
or whatever, they do actually have a virtual tour.
Oh, okay.
So you can do the virtual tour and see all of the equipment, see what we were talking about. So
Mm.
yeah, it'd be great if we could create the link to that too.
Okay, sure. Will do.
Fantastic.
All right.
Good. So how have you been?
Oh, I've been well. Yes, yes. Still here in Washington, D.C., but leaving here at the end of the week, heading back to Florida. Yeah, and I just got accepted to speak at the North American Collaboration Summit in October, so looking forward to that. I'll be doing a session on Power Automate Desktop for that one.
Fantastic.
And I was just looking at my flights and things to book over to Slovenia for the Thrive conference at the end of May, which I'll be speaking at. I've got two topics there around BI. So,
Superb. Yep.
yep.
Branka's reached out to me as well recently and asking me if
Oh,
I'm going to be over there. So
oh,
yeah, I think going to Slovenia is something I don't often turn down. So I definitely want to go there.
yeah,
Such a
I'm
beautiful
really
place.
excited to see it. Yep.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I guess next week we're going to be talking about DeliverPoint. So
Great.
yeah, we've got a new release of DeliverPoint that we're going to be launching. In fact, kind of two new versions of DeliverPoint
Mm,
that we're going to be launching. So
hmm.
looking forward to starting to talk about that
Yep.
and the work we've been doing around around that product.
Hmm.
And
Which is permissions management for SharePoint and Teams.
permissions management tool. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So yeah, really looking forward to sharing what we've been working on, which is
Yep.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Great. Great. All right. Well, I will see you next time then.
Sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Take care,
Good
Sandy,
catching up.
and
All
happy
right.
moving.
Oh,
All
thanks.
right. Bye.
Bye.